So what we've learned is that Admiral Rogers and Dan Coats, NSA director and DNI director, director of the National Intelligence, they wouldn't answer the questions. They had no legal basis not to. Admiral Rogers tried to say some of this material is classified, but it wasn't, because the question that Angus King was asking him had nothing to do with anything that was classified. And so it seemed like he had, okay. But what we've learned since then is that both those men were approached by Donald Trump, and both those men were asked to intervene with Comey and to get Comey to say in public that the president was not under investigation. And Comey wouldn't say that in public because there was one of his team, Comey's team, that disagreed that the president would not become somebody that was being investigated. And they didn't want to put Comey out there to say the president is not investigated because it would create for Comey a duty to reverse himself again. And Comey would then have to answer questions. Why wasn't he? And now he is. And Comey didn't want to be in that position. But there was one guy in his office that told him not to do it. And Comey said, now we know who the guy is. The guy's name inside the FBI that Comey had in those meetings was James Baker. That's his name. He was the member of Comey's team that said, do not go out there and tell the president that he's not tell the American people that the president's not under investigation, because the way this is going, he could very well be. And then you'll have a duty to reverse yourself. And you don't want that because we already got, sandbagged by the Hillary Clinton thing. And look at all the heartache that caused. You told Congress that if you got any new emails, you would go and you would update, your testimony. But for now, the investigation was done. The investigation into Hillary's emails took over a year. It was closed. There was no hacking of her server. There was no compromise of any classified information. She was maybe careless. He said she was careless with classified information, but no crime had been committed and no hacking had occurred and no adversary had gotten a hold of any documents that they shouldn't get a hold of. And so case closed. Then all of a sudden, the New York FBI, the NYPD seizes Anthony Weiner's computer. They shove it in front of your face without any forensics. Now you have to do the forensics, but before you can do it, you have to tell Congress you just came into receipt of some new material. And then 10 days later, you have to go back out and say, okay, so now we've done the forensics and the new material was really old material. And look at the mess that caused. So that's why Comey listened to James Baker's advice, who was a member of his team, not to announce. But Trump was obsessed with getting Comey to announce that he wasn't under investigation for collusion. And they disagreed because they didn't know if he would ever end up under investigation. And of course, today, President Trump is under investigation for obstruction. Now, what they had back then as well, besides for the Comey memos that Comey started to keep way back in January 7th, the first meeting in Trump Tower, where Comey had the unfortunate role of having to tell the incoming POTUS that he had been named in a dossier doing something really salacious with hookers in Russia at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in the same room that Barack and Michelle Obama had slept in. It was given to Comey, that task, to tell that to the president. And all President Trump wanted to know was he being personally investigated for that? And Comey kept assuring him he was not under investigation personally for what was in the dossier. But Comey would never go further than that. Turns out, President Trump, because he's a 3-year-old, went to Dan Coats and went to Admiral Rogers and asked them to intervene in the Comey announcement that he wanted Comey to make. And they were so concerned that they created memos about the contacts that Trump was having with them regarding telling Comey to clear him. So now there's other memos. And this, I think, is what they did not want to say in open session. Why, I have no idea. They were obligated, if asked, to tell that they were so concerned that they also created contemporaneous memos. And the man that created them and holds those memos is a man named Leggett. And Mr. Leggett confirmed that, yes, memos were created because Dan Coats was so alarmed about what the president was asking him to do with regard to James Comey. Then the whiny little bitch, as Bill Maher would call him, starts tweeting after Comey gives his first round of testimony confirming that there is an investigation, but leaves out the part that the president isn't personally under investigation for this salacious thing that's in the dossier. He says that he is conducting an investigation, a counterintelligence one, into Russian hacking, and if any Trump associates cooperated with the Russians. This is what sets Donald Trump off on another Twitter thing. And this is why he's making his own hell.